What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Review for Spice and Wolf. This is also going to, this is episode 24, also the finale, I guess, of season one, because it was actually announced that there is going to be another season. But yeah, with me as always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah. So the ending of this arc pretty much focuses on Lawrence and Holo helping out Elsa and Evan. They initially wanted to escape the Terrio village at first, but then they realized that I guess what was it, the Holy Church or of sorts wants to get into the village. Uh, because of that incident, supposedly about like someone getting poisoned by tainted wheat. So so Elsa wants to go back to try to convince them, like, that there was nothing wrong with the wheat in the first place. So they have like Kolo, who suggests that they use her, like, I guess her like abilities to. I guess she does something with the wheat that lets it. I don't know what
Well,
she
she was
does.
the,
She
I mean,
made
she
she
was
made it
worshipped
grow.
as the goddess of, like, of bringing like good harvest to the village, for wheat.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense that
Yes.
she could do that.
Yeah, so they go back to the village, and then with Holo hidden somewhere in town, she uses that ability to manipulate the wheat to grow out, and pretty much like just show that there was nothing wrong with the wheat in the first place. And this pretty much convinced, I guess, the Pope of I guess one of the churches to reluctantly agree that there was nothing wrong with the wheat in the first place.
Yeah.
And and then Lawrence steps in, tries to talk with one of the merchants, who I guess throw out that accusation about the tainted wheat, and then just pretty much like well, I guess with the help of all the villagers, who pretty much like are angry with the guy for making that accusation in the first place, I guess I guess like negotiate a better deal to help the town of Terrio. Uh, I guess restore its reputation. So I guess Lawrence convinces them to develop a new product. I which is like I guess what was
Bread.
it, bread biscuits or something?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much bread or biscuits they make from the wheat, um, which I guess turns into another, I guess probably a big source of revenue from the for the town that they make these biscuits from the wheat.
Yeah. And of course the village eventually ends up thriving from from its popularity. So yeah, sometime after that, Lawrence and Holo, yeah, of course, decide to move to the next town soon after this, and then they end up saying their goodbyes to both Elsa and the rest of the villagers, uh, and hoping they may end up meeting again sometime down the road, and that's pretty much it. Soon afterwards, and
Yeah,
then the
it's hard to put my finger exactly on. I mean, it wasn't a bad, like, I guess, way to end the season, but it wasn't quite as, I guess, as maybe like dramatic as I was expecting. Obviously Elsa had to go out of her way to sort of convince the Pope, or not. Well, I guess, this priest, that it wasn't a village of heretics, and they needed Holo's help to do so. And yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I was expecting maybe something a little bit, like I said, a little bit more dramatic, a little bit maybe somewhat flashier, and it just kind of ended in a way that was just kind of not quite what I was expecting, I guess. But it wasn't bad. I didn't really have a big problem with it. I guess it just doesn't really feel like a season finale in a way, aside from, I guess, that ending scene after the Holo and Lawrence are going off to the next town.
Yeah, it's just like it didn't feel as like as like you said, it didn't feel as much as dramatic as it was. Like the end of the first core felt a little bit more dramatic than it did for
Yeah,
this
because there
finale,
was
to
there
be
was a lot more
honest.
going on, and it felt like there was like a threat to Holo and Lawrence, and with what was happening. But here it's not really so much about Holo and Lawrence. It's more so just about them helping Elsa and Evan and the town. So I mean, maybe that's why it doesn't really so much feel that way. But I mean, it's funny because I mentioned this before we started recording that I pretty much called the season was going to end off with them flashing forward again to Holo talking to her daughter. And I'm not really even sure why they bother hiding the faces of Holo talking to her and her daughter's face. Well, maybe her daughter's face, because we don't really, at least anime viewers don't, unless they looked it up, don't really know what Holo and Lawrence's daughter looks like. But obviously we know that it's Holo talking to her daughter, and we see Lawrence return from doing something at 1.2, and we know it's him. It's obvious it's him, and it's obvious that it's Holo talking because it's the same voice actor. So I mean, it's kind of silly that they're trying to hide their faces, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I called that they were going to flash forward to that again, and Holo pretty much says like, well, that's the end of this story, but I have more stories that I'm going to tell you. So, obviously hinting at another season. So even if we didn't have the announcement that there was going to be a season 2, it's pretty obvious that they intended that there is going to be another season. And it does, of course, end differently from how the original series ended with, which I guess was just kind of an anime original way to end off that season of the original series. Because here it ends with this particular arc instead of kind of ending off with the Amarty arc, and here it ends with this, which I mean, it wasn't, like I said, wasn't a bad arc, but it's kind of a weak arc to end off the season in my opinion, because like I said, it doesn't really feel like as dramatic or climactic as you mentioned, like the first Course arc did. But other than that, I didn't really have a problem with it. I thought it was okay. I think obviously the point of animating this arc was because I guess those characters are going to show up again later in the story. The arc itself was just an okay arc. In comparison to the other story arcs from that we've seen in the season so far, I'd have to say it was probably the weakest in my opinion. Like the other ones were a lot more interesting. This one,
honestly, honestly, I really feel like this story arc could have been held off maybe for I guess for the start of season 2.
Yeah,
the Amarty thing felt more like a proper finale. For the overall season, to be honest. The Elsa and the Terrio, the town of Terrio arc. I mean, it was all right, considering that it's like the only new material that we really get to see outside of from the original anime.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, honestly, it just I just felt like it ended off in a weird way for them to end the season before they finally announced season 2, which as of right now we don't even know when that's going to be released. I mean, we could speculate it could be sometime maybe around, I would say, as late as fall of next year, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good guess. I would assume, probably late next year, possibly as late as early 2026. But I would assume like the safest bet would probably be later, maybe late 2025. But yeah, I mean, overall, this was a pretty good, I guess remake of Spice and Wolf. I liked it. The new art style. Studio Passion, I feel like actually did a pretty decent job. They've had a bit of a spotty track record with some of their other work, but mostly with in regards to stuff like Higurashi. But I would say that's mostly due to Ryokishi just kind of whatever the hell he was trying to do with that, not necessarily the studio. So I think they did a pretty good job with this, though. I'd say it's, in comparison to the original series, I like it. I definitely think it's the better version, even though I think the original series is good in its own right. I think this is a pretty decent adaptation. Well, I mean, obviously I can't speak for it as an adaptation because I haven't read the source material, but I think, just judging it as a standalone thing, I think it's pretty good, and it's definitely a lot. It has a cleaner look to it in comparison to the original series, and it also covers some more content from the novels. Although I would say like what it does cover in terms of this particular arc, wasn't really the best, but I think it's just going in order, obviously, from how it is in the light novels. Maybe I'm just hoping that there's some better story arcs that are covered in maybe the next season. I also like how they showed Holo talking to her daughter and all that. That was some pretty good fan service for people who know about the sequel series. And the only problem though is that it does, of course, spoil what is eventually going to happen with Holo and Lawrence. Of course, the original series didn't have any of that. So you don't really know, of course, do they end up together? Do they end up having children and anything like that? This right off the bat kind of spoils that they do, which, I mean, isn't a big deal, but I guess it could be a little bit of an issue with people who are maybe wondering what ends up happening with them. Because, we kind of already have the answer in a way. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's maybe somewhat of a nitpick. But aside from that, I think it was this is pretty decent series so far. I'd probably say it's an 8. I mean, I enjoyed it for the most part. I didn't really have a lot of issues with it. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have much else to say about this season. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty decent improvement over the original series. Not only just the overall animation, the artwork, which it kind of makes it feel like that the animation from the original series kind of aged a little bit poorly from when you look at it, but overall this is a major improvement.
I feel like it's also sort of a reflection of the time it came out. And of course it was just it was handled by a different studio. I think the original series it was Production IG. This one, of course, it's being done by a different studio. It's just like I said, it's just more so just it's sort of just how a lot of anime looked around that time period. So of course not everything looked like that, but it was kind of like, I guess, the typical art style that you would see.
Yeah, and I also did like that they brought back a lot. Mainly the main two voice actors for Holo and Lawrence, for not only just the Japanese, but also the English dub, and you can tell that their acting has improved over the course of the years in comparison from how they first started out playing their characters, and then how they're portraying them today right now.
Yeah, I like how that was kept consistent with both the Japanese and the English versions. They brought back the original actors. But yeah, it was a good first season. I'm definitely interested in season 2 because season 2 is just going to be content like anime only viewers haven't seen from the light novels, and it's pretty clear that at this point that they most likely intend to do a full adaptation of the series. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, guys, I'm looking forward to the next season when that happens. But aside from that, we will see you all next time.